Today, the podcast, my guest, Tim Shurr, author, speaker, belief in how to train your brain expert. Tim also an author of the book, One Belief Away. He's also a dad of two teenage boys trying to navigate the pandemic in school. Welcome to the podcast, Tim.
Hey, Joe, thanks for having me.
One thing I was interesting too, because it can tie into your kids too, and think about that is how important are the words we use?
They're very important because the words you choose to use push emotional buttons inside of people. And if you want to strengthen relationships, if you want to influence people, if you want to have more impact, whether it's in your personal relationships with your family or at work or anywhere else, you got to be very aware of the kinds of words that you use because they matter. And of course, people think, well, maybe I need to be more compassionate or more thoughtful. But actually, there's another way of paying attention to the words you use. So I can give you some examples of words that I never use.
Okay.
And because I think that they weaken our desire, our motivation, and our impact.
Mm-hmm.
So like one word is don't. The word don't. When you use the word don't, your brain only does what comes after it. Right. So if you tell your kid, don't throw that toy, what do?
I'm going to throw the toy.
They're going to throw the toy because their brain, not because they're being defiant, but because their brain hears throw the toy. If you say, don't eat those cookies, don't eat those cookies, your brain hears eat those cookies. Right. And so when you're telling someone what not to do, if I say, don't think of kicking a dog, you think I like kicking the dog. And so the word don't, whenever you're focusing on what you're trying to get away from, it moves you in that direction. Your mind works like a GPS, Joe. So if I type in, I don't want to go to the grocery store, I don't want to go to the movies, I don't want to go to the post office, you're going to end up in one of those places because that's what your mind hears. Instead of saying, I want to go to Joe's house, right? Now my mind knows what to do. So instead of telling your kid, don't throw the toy, you say, put the toy here or put it there. You choose. Good job either way.
What's interesting how powerful the mind actually is. And it's amazing. I listened to some of the book you talked about. We'll talk about a little bit about the beliefs and stuff like that. But it's all a mind's like a big computer, and it's so fascinating. It's a fascinating thing. Well, also you're a dad too, like two teenage boys going through the pandemic right now. How is that for you? How's the teenage boys doing?
It's tough. It's really tough. And they're bright, creative, amazing young men. And it's still been very difficult. So one is going to school on a hybrid schedule and has to wear a mask all day long. There's no social interaction. Nobody talks to one another because they're spaced apart wearing their mask. So socially, it's been really difficult. And then my 13-year-old, who's the extrovert and very active, doesn't go to school. He's been virtual. And because the numbers were so high where we lived, and it's been really difficult because, the only social interaction he has is his parents and some friends online occasionally. And that's been really difficult as well.
What is some ideas, maybe some thoughts you may have of like, how do you help your teenage boys deal with stuff like this? Because it's a whole new thing that we never had to grow up with.
That's exactly right. It's a great question, Joe. So the way that we've been doing it is we've been having a lot of conversations and a lot of listening. I'm a coach and very good at being able to give advice and jump in there. And the advice that I've been receiving from my kids is, shut up, Dad, and just listen. Don't try to fix it. Just listen. Don't try to put a positive spin on it. Just let me vent. And, that's been helping me to realize that sometimes just sharing how they're feeling without doing anything except listening and validating. Yeah, that's tough that you're going through that. And I'm sorry that you're feeling this way, without trying to make it better and just validating how they're feeling. That in itself can be really beneficial.
Well, it's interesting too. Another thing I was thinking about too, but what you do for a background is you have a degree in psychology and stuff like that, and also a hypnotist. And I find that funny because I'm not saying it doesn't work. I don't say I don't believe in it, but I'm just curious. What is a hypnotist?
So hypnosis is really the study of influencing somebody's unconscious mind, right? Your unconscious mind is kind of like the hard drive of your computer brain, and it runs the programs. And so it would make sense. All our beliefs, our attitudes, how we approach life, our memories, our life experiences are stored in that hard drive of our mind. So a lot of times in traditional therapy, we're trying to use positive thinking, right? We're talking about our problems, but we're never getting to the root of what we really believe, of what's really going on. It's kind of like cutting the top of a weed off. You got to get to the root and pull it out there. Well, hypnosis is all about directly going to the root of the problem and addressing it at that level instead of just dealing with the symptoms. So people are skeptical of hypnosis because of the entertainment side of it, right? Where people are clucking like chickens and running around acting goofy, or because of Hollywood movies that make it look like, your vampires can put people in trances, and movies like Get Out or with Kevin Bacon, and so hypnosis makes it look like you can put people in a trance against their will. And that's false. That's all make-believe from Hollywood. So that's where the skepticism comes from. The clinical side of hypnosis is very valid, and it's taught at Stanford University. The Catholic Church gave a thumbs up to it in 1956 as the number one way to stop smoking. So it's highly respected in those realms. It's just most people don't know about that side of it. They just see the Hollywood side of it.
It's very interesting too. You see about the ones like quit smoking, losing weight, and stuff like that. It's like people have blockages in their mind, and hypnosis helps them probably get through that.
Yes, absolutely. So your brain is like a computer, like you said. And what we do is we download mental malware on accident. Malware are those computer viruses that make your programs not work. And so, we download mental malware when we're kids. And this mental malware are beliefs like, I'm not good enough, I won't be loved, I'm not safe, people are going to reject me. If I speak in front of a group, I'm going to be humiliated. We have all these deep fears and insecurities, with the main one being, I'm not enough. And because I'm not enough, I won't be loved. And then, so how do I get love? And we develop all these dysfunctional ways of trying to prove that we're enough, or trying to get validation. And so when that happens, most people are just trying to change what's going on outside of them. Well, if I have a better job, well, if I have a stronger body, well, if I marry the right person, well, if I do these things, then I'll be happy. And that usually doesn't create the happiness we want. So we got to go update the beliefs that are in our mind. We got to get rid of the mental malware. And hypnosis helps you to do that really fast, because it goes right to where it got started. And that's why I wrote that last book called One Belief Away, because for 30 years, I've been watching people go from a breakdown to a breakthrough, saying, I can't do this, to then doing it, saying this is impossible, and then it happens. And it's not like they changed who they were. They just changed the beliefs that were running in their computer brain. And when you change the program, you get a better outcome.
Where do beliefs start? Do they start at a young age? Do we just learn them over time? Where do the beliefs start?
Yeah. Another great question, Joe. Cognitive researchers say that most of the beliefs that we have about ourselves, about other people, and about the world around us were formed by the time we were 8 years old. So it's kind of like you've got an inner 8-year-old making decisions unconsciously on your behalf. And, for your love life, for your finances, for how you take care of yourself. And you can really tell that that's accurate when we get stressed, because we start, I'm going to eat all the donuts in the house. I'm going to get mad. I'm going to give a silent treatment. I'm going to throw a temper tantrum and start yelling. I'm going to have a pity party for myself. All these ways that we deal when we're upset or stressed or overwhelmed. You can see that inner child coming out real strong.
It's almost like going through a trauma when you're a kid, like getting picked on, being picked on as a kid. Yeah, it's just kids being kids. But does it have it sounds like it has a long lasting effect.
It has a very long lasting effect. Those, I call them big T and little T traumas. Mm-hmm. So getting picked on is over a long period of time is a trauma. Getting sexually abused is a big T trauma, right? And there's so much verbal, physical, and sexual abuse that people have experienced in the world. I was shocked when I facilitated over 15,000 individual coaching sessions over a couple of decades. And I was shocked how much, I'm pretty convinced that everybody has big T and little T traumas in their life. And we don't realize how that's affecting us 30 years later when we're in our 30s and 40s and 50s, and how it's still messing with us. And it's not the experiences that we went through, Joe. It's what we think they mean. It's how we interpreted them. It's the beliefs that we formed about ourselves or others. So if you got picked on, I definitely got picked on a lot when I was little. And so, it formed a belief in my mind that the world's not a safe place. It's not a safe place. And so going through life, I was going through life playing not to lose instead of playing to win. And when you play not to lose, you keep losing no matter how hard you try. And even when you win, you're just afraid that it's going to get taken away. And so we've got to figure out what these beliefs are and upgrade them. And most people just don't want to do it because it's uncomfortable. But I've also found that your biggest breakthroughs are hidden in the places you don't want to go.
It's interesting too. It's when you're having something good, I can remember something, just an example in my head, something going good and waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Yep.
That when you say that comes to mind.
Yeah, because not only the beliefs that we interpret, but also the beliefs that we are around. I mean, all the adults around us were often wounded kids, that grew up, and we've got our religion, and we've got our government, and we've got our culture, and we've got the socioeconomic pressures around us, and where you lived and where you grew up. And all of that influences us as well. And so people that are our age, that were growing up in the 70s and the 80s, we have all kinds of beliefs of don't get your expectations too high because you're going to get disappointed. Or you start doing well, who do you think you are? You think you're special? Or, if you're doing well, then, now you're being selfish, right? You're not being a good Christian, And so all these limiting beliefs that are ridiculous, that cause us to feel less than. So there's no wonder why insecurity is the biggest dis-ease on this planet.
One thing you mentioned too, limited beliefs, and that's kind of a word I kind of like, limited beliefs. Why do you think people have so many limited beliefs, and how can they overcome them?
Well, a big part of our brain has been developing over the last 500,000 years since we were Neanderthals. And that part of our brain was all about survival. And so its main objective is to keep us away from pain and perceived threat, right? We will avoid pain more than we will create pleasure. And so because we have a brain that over 500,000 years has been trying to keep us away from pain, it pays attention to pain, and it pays attention to every possible way that we could get hurt. And so it was interesting because of that, our society has been wrapped around this idea of avoiding pain. You can have it all. You should have it all because then you won't have any pain, which is a lie, because everything we do to try to have it all creates pain. And, humans are in this horrible habit of trying to avoid pain by doing things that create more of it. Like you're stressed out, so you light up a cigarette, because you just found out you got lung cancer. So you smoke an extra pack that week. We do all these things. I might get diabetes, so I end up eating a whole bunch of sugar. We do these weird sabotaging behaviors trying to avoid pain. And a big part of it is I asked a group that I was facilitating to pick a new emotion that they'd like to experience, one new emotion each day for 7 days in a row. And I said, just go to Google and Google a list of 50 emotions. And maybe today I'm going to be exuberant. And tomorrow I'm going to feel serenity. And the next day I'm going to feel passion, right? Instead of the same stress, motivation, let down, overwhelmed. And so anyway, I Googled 50 emotions because I will never ask anybody else to do something unless I'm willing to do it as well. So I Googled that list of 50 emotions, and out of the 50, 40 of them described negative experiences.
Oh, wow.
40 of them we would say would be negative emotions out of the 50. That shows us that like 80 to 90% of what's out in the world would be perceived as negative or self-limiting. And so when you try to just have a positive attitude, or you try to believe in yourself, you can see why so many people have difficulty doing it.
Well, you think not believing in yourself is challenging. We talked about trauma a few minutes ago, but not believing in yourself. How can somebody believe in themselves? How can they change their mind and move forward?
You really got to reparent yourself. You got to go through. I asked myself that question 32 years ago, trying to figure out that exact answer. So that's a great question, Joe. And just trying to figure out what is the answer. How do I stop feeling anxious? How do I stop feeling scared? How do I stop sabotaging myself? How do I stop, holding myself back. Right. Of course, at the time, I didn't think I was holding myself. I thought everybody else was holding me back. I was full of blame, right, and self-pity. And so, but now after 3 decades of looking for that answer, I found it. And it's really reparenting yourself. It's going back and finding those beliefs and changing them and changing the experiences. Because remember, it's not what happened, it's how you're interpreting it. And we have the ability to go back and empower ourselves. We have the ability to go from a victim to a victor. We have the ability to take a situation that was painful and use it to make us, to help us become the person that we've always wanted to be. We have that ability, but people don't know that they have the ability, and then they don't know how to do it. I put the exact strategies that I've taken tens of thousands of people through and that have worked. I mean, these are the exact strategies for reparenting yourself, and they're all in that One Belief Away book.
Well, it's interesting too. I could listen to the most, or read most. I would say read most of the book. Or listen to it. We talked about before.
Yes.
There's one thing was I was very interested is the power questions, the negative questions, and folders.
Yeah.
What are those all about? I was kind of curious.
So William James, the founder of modern psychology, he said the greatest discovery of the 20th century is that the quality of your life is being determined by the quality of your thinking. And really, thinking is just kind of a process of asking ourselves questions. And the questions you ask yourself determine what you focus on. So those lousy questions usually focus on what we're unhappy about, what we're missing, what we think is unfair, and what's going wrong. And of course, what you focus on expands. What you focus on, you move towards. So if you're focusing on what's not working, you're going to have more of that. So lousy questions are like, why is it got to be so hard? How come things never work out for me? Why am I ever not taken for granted? Whose fault is this? Why this? Why me? Why, why now? Right. And it causes us to lose our energy and lose our drive, and we start procrastinating, and then it just causes more of that yucky cycle. Power questions redirect your attention onto what you want. So you would ask questions like, all right, what's the outcome that I want? My wife just said something and it pushed a button inside of me. Now I can say something smart aleck back. I can defend myself. I can justify myself, or I can say, what's the outcome that I want? I want us to become closer. What could I say that would cause us to become closer? Right? So what's the outcome that I want? How do I want to feel? What's one thing I can do to feel that way that would leave me feeling proud of myself afterwards? What resources do I have? Who can I lean on for support? When you focus on what's going well and you ask yourself those questions, Joe, it causes your mind to pay attention to that bit of information. It's like there's a million directions you could go, in any given moment. The questions you ask help you figure out what solutions or what problems you're going to have more of.
It's amazing. It's fascinating because I can see that it's like a wall. There's a wall right here. I'll show my head in the video, but there's a wall, and I know I'm knocking on the door. I'm like, this is what you got to do. But sometimes people can't break that wall. Can't break that wall. Yeah. That's something, when you keep saying stuff like that, it comes in my mind. One thing I was interested in too, and you talk about in the book a little bit about visualization, and kind of reminds me a little bit. I'll give you my thought about it is playing golf. One thing when I'm on the tee box and I look at the tee box, I step back, I look at the ball, I look down the fairway, and I visualize how I'm going to hit that ball and where it's going to land. And then as I do it, boom, lands where I wanted to. If I just step up and do it, it goes left. So when you talk
or
about
people say, just don't hook it. Just don't hook it. Now you know why.
Well, that's that came to mind when you were talking about visualization. I wonder if we could talk a little more about that.
Well, I mean, you just did a beautiful job of explaining it. You're telling your brain what you want it to do, and you're doing it through symbols. When we were first little babies, we didn't think in language, we thought in symbols. So we see a mother's face and we think food, right? So we see a mother's face, we start crying, we get fed, our brain makes that connection. So that was the first form of language. So your unconscious mind kind of thinks in images and feelings more than just words. We use words to create the images and the feelings. Okay, so if I say, where's the milk in your fridge? Most people immediately see their fridge and they see the milk on the door or wherever it might be. And so they're using words to create images. So If you tell yourself, like you said, this is what I want to do, and you keep imagining it, then your brain knows what to do and adjusts. Unfortunately, what most people do when they're visualizing is they're imagining worst case scenarios. That's what we call worry and stress, right? That we are imagining what we don't want and then acting or reacting as though it already happened, even though it didn't. It's just a movie that we made up in our mind.
That's interesting too. How do we overcome that? Like, can we just change our thought process, or maybe there's some activity or some kind of things we could do?
Yeah, the main answer is practice.
Mhm.
You know, we're not good at anything until we practice it. And once we practice it, it becomes more automatic. And so I remember I was helping someone to, they would have a negative thought about themselves, and then I would help them to recognize it, maybe say, cancel clear, what would I rather believe? What do I want to have happen? And I remember they came back the next week and I said, so how did it go? And they're like, oh, that didn't work. I'm like, okay, well, what happened? And they said, well, I was telling myself that, I was having another bad day. And I thought, all right, I took a breath and I said, you know what? We can turn this day around. What do I want to have happen? And then I couldn't think of anything. And I'm like, you know what? This is crap. And then I didn't do it anymore. I'm like, so you tried it one time, right? You've been practicing your negative approach for 40 years, but you tried this one time and it didn't work. Imagine if you were learning to walk and you get up and you fall down and your mom says, all right, no more of that walking stuff. We got to knock no more of that. Okay.
Yeah.
No, you got up, you fell down, you got up, you fell down, you got up, you walked, then you fell down. Right. And that's what we're going to do with this. We're learning a new skill. This is a skill. It's not a behavior. It's not an attitude. It's a skill, and skills can be learned. So learning how to make yourself feel safe, loved, encouraged, hopeful, supported is a skill that most people are terrible at. And it just takes a little bit of practice and then using the shortcuts that will make it a little bit easier for you. And like I said, the shortcuts are in the book, or what we've been talking about. Your whole podcast is about providing people with successful shortcuts that make their lives happier, which is why I wanted to be on your program.
Well, it's interesting too. I mean, I was thinking about too, you talk about the book called The Biggest Secret. How did you come about that and talk about that with The Biggest Secret in the book? Because I found that fascinating. I read it. I think it was a little documentary about it too. What fascinates you about The Biggest Secret?
Well, are you referring to the movie, The Secret, that they had produced?
I think so. The book, I read the book too. The book too.
Yes. Yeah. And the book. Yes, of course. The book as well. And so, yeah, Robin Byrne collected a bunch of amazing people who were practicing and teaching how to use the power of your mind to create your life by design, and to teach these strategies of paying attention to the words that you use and how to imagine what you want so that you start moving towards it, and how to influence how you're feeling instead of just saying, well, I'm just going to feel this way. Today I'm at the mercy of whatever happens. You want to be the cause of your life, or you want to be the effect of it? Do you want to be the puppet, getting life's pulling your strings, or do you want to be the puppet master where you're pulling your own strings? And so this has been taught in personal development and self-help programs for decades. It's just that most people, 90% of the population, does not do any kind of personal development. They're not actively paying attention to their thoughts. They're not actively upgrading their beliefs. Emotional intelligence is fairly low because we don't put a lot of that energy into it. The schools are starting to incorporate emotional intelligence in grade school now, but it didn't exist when we were going to school. In fact, when I watch movies that were made in the 80s, it's like, oh my God, you could never get away with saying that now or doing that now.
No.
Right. And so it's just a matter of recognizing that the training is available. I mean, you can have it right on your phone immediately. And it's just learning how to do these things. And I think it's the most important work you can do, learning how to understand your own mind and learning how to upgrade your life by upgrading your beliefs.
Well, one thing that was interesting too is why it's some people have such a negative ideas or thoughts about this kind of stuff.
Because they don't trust it, because they've been hurt and because they've been wounded. They just don't trust it. They don't think it's going to work. They think that you're trying to manipulate them. They think that you're in denial, that the world is a horrible place and you're delusional if you don't believe that. right?
Yeah.
That's why, because they're wounded. We operate from our level of awareness. And if our level of awareness about ourselves, about how your mind works, about how the world works, about how beliefs work, if you're not aware of that, you don't trust it, right?
Yeah.
You still think that there's witches out there. You know, in the 1700s, they had 30,000 trials for werewolves.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 30,000 people. Many people were put to death because they were found guilty of being a werewolf, which of course is ridiculous. Okay. But, you know, people and their beliefs, we have all kinds of beliefs. And if most of them are negative or cause mistrust or fear or greed, which, you know, our societies reinforce those feelings when you watch, especially now with social media. But we've always had our own propaganda. And now with Facebook and everything else, you know, so many people are getting mixed messages, and it's not bringing us together. It's causing more divide. And so we've got some work ahead of us. But again, it doesn't matter what happens in the White House. What matters is what happens in your house. And it starts with you. Most people want to change somebody else. You know, the old joke in marriage counseling is, I'm here to fix my partner. Okay. But it's us, you know, it's you and me. We are the ones that we need to work on the most. And when you work harder on yourself than anything else, you will have a more quality life.
One other interesting too, I was thinking about too, mentors and coaches. How important can a mentor? Could it be? It could be a person you go to talk to all the time on a chat or go for a coffee, or a mentor that you could read some books that might be helpful. I'm curious a little about that too.
Yeah, great question. Yeah, mentors and coaches shorten your learning curve. They help you see your blind spots. They help you catch things about yourself that you weren't recognizing, that you weren't realizing. They give you feedback that you're able to take because it's coming from a trusted source and you feel like it's coming from love, you know, and they actually have your back and they're on your side. So you're more open to it. You'll be kind of more coachable as opposed to getting it from your spouse or getting it from somebody else. And so having coaches, which are people you pay, or having mentors, which are people that usually are just helping you out of the kindness of their heart, is very valuable because they give you new information. You know, Albert Einstein, one of the smartest people that ever lived on Earth, said that, you know, you are only as you know, as wise as the feedback that you get, and you cannot solve a problem with the same mind that created it. You have to have new information and new feedback in order to find a new solution. And most people just don't know what they don't know. And that's why in therapy, they say self-awareness is the first step. You can't fix what you're not aware of.
Well, what's funny too, it's interesting. And I'm going to give an example of myself, actually.
Okay.
Feedback. I have my boss, my full-time job. He gives me feedback about the podcast saying, you're doing a great job. You know, I'm like, well, I got another guest. Oh, doing a great job. I'm like, I don't know. I'm just a podcaster. People email me. And I have a hard time believing when somebody says you do a good job. I mean, some people go through the same kind of things I do, whatever circumstances or whatever they do. Why is that?
Do you have a more easy time believing that you're doing a bad job?
No.
So, you know, again, it's all about our beliefs, right? So sometimes we're good at accepting compliments because we compliment ourselves and we compliment others. Sometimes we have a very difficult time receiving compliments because we don't give them to ourselves or because we don't give them to others more freely. And that's often because we had a mom or a dad that didn't give it to us or didn't praise us in that way. And so again, we do what we learn to do. And, you know, if I go into a company and the leadership team is complaining about how poorly the employees are working, I remind them that employees model the behavior of their leaders. And so just like kids model the behavior of their parents. So what we want to do in that situation is it's up to you. You can do two things. You can say, well, I'm okay. I know that I'm not doing a bad job, but I'm not going to accept that, you know, these people are telling me I'm doing a great job, and you're just going to stay kind of in the middle. Or you can decide, you know what, when they tell me I'm doing a good job, I'm going to accept that. I'm going to say thank you and feel good about myself and receive the pat on the back. If you do that, Joe, two things will happen. One, over time, you'll feel better. Okay. And two, they'll feel better too, because if your boss gives you a gift, even if it's in the form of a compliment, which is a very powerful gift, and you don't really receive it, you're like, no, then, it kind of robs him of that pleasure that he got of complimenting you. Right. So, you rob yourself and you rob him when you don't accept that you are doing a great job.
It's just, when you were talking about that, and thank you for answering that question, about the podcast, but it was something I was thinking about when you were talking, because some people have a hard time taking compliments and believing in themselves and believing that they're doing a good job. Even they think, well, I'm just doing it, and I hope somebody likes it.
Well, I liked it enough to come on your show on a Saturday on a holiday weekend and spend time with you. Right. And I've been on hundreds of shows, so I didn't have to do this. I wanted to do this and I wanted to spend time with you. So, actions speak louder than words. So you are doing a great job. So deal with it.
Thank you. One thing I want to talk about too is you also have a podcast and your new book, One Belief Away.
Yeah.
What is your podcast about?
It's called How to Be Mesmerizing. And I wanted to interview the Hall of Fame speakers of the world because I wanted to be one. And I figured if you want to be something, you need to be around people who are like that. Right. And so, so I started interviewing people in that respect, and then found that it was a lot of fun and people were really gracious. And then I also turned it into an opportunity to interview some of my mentors from when I was, 19 years old, a broke college kid, just barely getting by. And I discovered the library, and they let you rent audiobooks for free. And I'm like, what? Because I didn't have money to buy them. And so I would walk out with 5 or 10 stacks of audio cassette tapes, listening to Brian Tracy or Dennis Waitley or Les Brown. And I thought, wouldn't it be amazing if I could interview them? And now I'm friends with all of them, which just blows my mind, right? We've had interviews. I put together a Legend Summit, and I've invited 36 of the most amazing people to my Legend Summits. And now I got them all on my phone. It freaks me out, that I can call up Brian or Les, or Dennis. That's amazing to me, or Bob Proctor, or Ken Blanchard. It's amazing that, and I was scared to at first, because my own limiting beliefs, I'm like, why would those people want to talk to me? I'm making myself feel small. And then I had to take my own advice and go, wait a second, they're going to love me. I love me. They'll love me. Right? That's not how I talked to myself, when I started out. I was very anxious and very shy and scared of everything. And so, but I tell myself, if I'm resisting, if I get scared, I have to do it. And when I do, that's when the breakthroughs happen.
Exactly. Jump. I like, there's one video, I think it was I can't remember the celebrity, but says the best thing that happens in life is when you jump into it and do it. And that's why I keep thinking, when you're saying that too, I forgot the celebrity. He does Family Feud.
Steve Harvey.
Steve Harvey said that. Yes.
Yeah,
I saw a video.
Awesome.
Steve Harvey said that. I remember I had to think of that for a second. Also, your book, One Belief Away. And what is it? What kind of book is it? Is it something you can read from front to cover, or like chapters and there's like exercises in it? What kind of book is it?
Yeah, my books are all full of strategy, right? A lot of motivational books teach you a philosophy and give you an idea of how you want to live your life. My books always tell you, this is how you pull it off. This is how you actually do it. They'll say you should have discipline. My book will say, this is how you create discipline, right? Because I wanted to know, how do you do that? And I was very skeptical with everything, including hypnosis back in the day. I'm like, show me, I'll believe it when I see it. Right. And so, so I wanted to test everything, prove everything. And a part of me was expecting it to be false, that it wasn't going to work out. And then when it worked out, I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. I can't believe. And then I do it again, and whoa, it worked again. And so I just kept doing that. And some stuff was garbage. Some stuff didn't work, but a lot of tools did. I was sifting through a lot of mud, but I found a whole bunch of gold nuggets, and I put those into the book. So my books are hard to just read through, because every chapter has an exercise, a strategy, a mental reconditioning technique, an awakening experience designed to retrain your brain and create new neural associations, right? That help you to feel to feel it, right? Not just trying to talk yourself into something, but to actually feel it. And so it doesn't rely on willpower. We are going to retrain your emotional unconscious mind to show up and respond in the way that you most want to. Because I have learned that it doesn't matter what shows up. What matters is how you show up and how you respond to it.
Also, final thoughts, wrapping up, final thoughts you can leave, anything you want to leave with the audience?
I just want you to know that you are already enough. You have nothing to prove. You're already good. You already have the talents and the skills and the ability and the resources inside of you. You may need to learn how to connect the dots, but your mind is kind of like a safe and it has treasure inside of you already. You might only have 2 of the 3 numbers in the combination. So it feels like pulling that door open is hard and impossible. But once you find that 3rd combination, and you do that by listening to programs like Joe's, then he provides you that 3rd number in the combination. And when you have it, that door swings open easily and you're able to access the treasure that's already inside. So believe in yourself and remember, you are truly only one belief away from your biggest breakthrough.
Also, where they connect you if they want to reach out and ask questions and find your book?
You can go to timshurr.com. And that has all my resources. My books are on Amazon. So if you go to Amazon, you'll find my books. And then for everybody that's listening, I like to give them a free copy of a new program. So if you're listening, if you're a fan of Joe's program, I'm going to give you the secret link. I created a new program called The Power of Your Unconscious Mind. And it's an awesome, fun, empowering program. And if you go to Power Mindset Program, powermindsetprogram.com, that'll get you the free copy.
All links will be in the show notes for this episode. Tim, I want to thank you very much for spending your time this weekend on the holiday weekend. I really do appreciate it, sir.
Joe, it was so much fun. I love the questions. You're doing such a great job. So keep it going. And thanks for having me.